Hi everyone, I'm Dr. K. Venkat Reddy from JNTU Kakinada. Welcome back to my lecture series on the microprocessors and microcontrollers. In the previous lecture, we have discussed different types of computers such as supercomputers, mainframe computers, mini computers and microcomputers. Microcomputers are very small size computers such as your desktop computers, your laptop computers, tablet PCs, smartphones, etc. The microcomputer mainly consists of three parts. One is the central processing unit. The central processing unit of a microcomputer is called the microprocessor. The other important part is the input-output ports to which the peripheral devices, the input-output devices are connected. The other important part of a computer is the memory. We need memory in the computers to store the user informations and programs. Normally, the user's expectations are the user wants huge amount of memory. The memory should be high speed memory and the user wants this high speed and huge amount of memory at a very low cost. Designing huge amount of memory and high speed memory at a very low cost is a difficult task. The designers work out for various configurations to provide as much amount of memory as possible in the computers at higher speeds and low cost. In this video, let us discuss different types of memories and the hierarchy of the memories used in the personal computers.
Now, what is a computer memory? Computer memory is basically a set of physical locations where the user stores their programs and data. Some memories store the programs or data temporarily or permanently. If you divide the memory into smallest pieces, the smallest piece of the memory is called a memory cell. The memory cell can store only one binary digit, that is either 0 or 1. The memory cell is connected with a data bus, address bus and control bus. If you want to write some information into the memory cell, we need to select that particular memory cell with the help of an address line, and we need to send the information to the memory cell through the data bus, and we need to issue a write control signal through the control bus. Then the data either 0 or 1 will be written into the required memory cell. Similarly, if you want to read some information from the memory cell, the first step is we need to select that memory cell using address bus, and we need to connect the data bus for the data transfer, and we need to issue a read control signal. Then the required data will come through the data bus. If you group 4 such memory cells, the combination of 4 memory cells is called a nibble. A nibble can store 4 binary digits. If you group 2 such nibbles, total 8 memory cells, that is called 8 bits or a byte. The combination of 8 bits is called a byte. In computer memories, the memories are created by grouping the bytes. Here we have 2 bytes. These 2 bytes are numbered as 0 and 1. The unique numbers provided to each byte are called their addresses. If you have n bytes of such memory, they are numbered from 0 to n minus 1. Then this is said to be n bytes of memory. In memory, each bit must be connected with a data bus, and address bus selects a particular byte out of the n bytes. If you have n bytes, the number of address lines that are required are log n base 2. In other words, if you have a number of lines in the address bus, using this a number of address lines, 2 to the power of a different numbers can be generated. So each number can be assigned to a byte, so that 2 to the power of a number of bytes can be accessed. If you have 1024 such bytes, starting from 0 to 1023, this is said to be 1K memory locations, 1K bytes of memory. If we expand these addresses into binary, this 1023 corresponding to 10 ones. Now the address 0 to 1023 can be written as 10 zeros to 10 ones in binary. In other words, it is 0 to 2 to the power of 10 minus 1, that is 1023. Total 2 to the power of 10 locations in computer notations, 2 to the power of 10 locations is called 1 kilo. Now this memory is said to be 1K into 8 memory or 1 KB of memory. In computer notations, 1024 bytes or 2 to the power of 10 bytes is called 1 kilobyte, 2 to the power of 20 bytes is called 1 megabyte, 2 to the power of 30 bytes is called 1 gigabyte, 2 to the power of 40 bytes is called 1 terabyte, 2 to the power of 50 bytes is called 1 petabyte, 2 to the power of 60 bytes is called 1 exabyte, 2 to the power of 70 bytes is called 1 zettabyte, 2 to the power of 80 bytes is called 1 yottabyte. We have different types of computer memories. Computer memories can be classified into two main types. One is internal memories or primary memories, which are inside the microprocessor or which are on the motherboard of the computer. The second classification is external memories or secondary memories. They are outside the motherboard of the computer. Internal memories can be the random access memories, RAMs, or read-only memories, ROMs. Depending on the type of construction, RAMs can be classified as static memories or dynamic memories. The static memories are the fastest memories. They are used as registers or cache memories. The registers are temporary storage locations inside the microprocessor chip. They are basically made up of high-speed static random access memories. Inside the microprocessor, if the microprocessor wants to perform any arithmetical logical operations, it stores the data temporarily in the registers. Cache memory is a small sized static random access memory that is placed between the main memory and the central processing unit. The cache memory improves the performance of the computer and it improves memory access. Dynamic memory can be SDRAMs or DDR-RAMs. The present day computers are using DDR4 type random access memories as main memories. Read-only memories may be the programmable read-only memories, erasable programmable read-only memories, electrically erasable programmable read-only memories, or flash memories. The examples of secondary memories are floppy disk, magnetic tapes, CD-ROMs, DVDs, hard disk, solid state drives, pen drives, SD cards, etc. The present day personal computers are using solid state drives in addition to the normal hard disk to speed up the operation. For better performance of the computers, memory access time is very important. Memory access time is the time required by the memory to store the information into the memory or to give the information back to the processor. If the memory access time is very less, speed of operation is more and performance is more. Depending upon the type of memory access, the memories are classified into two types. They are random access memories and sequential access memories. In random access memories, the user can access any memory location directly. On the other hand, in sequential access memories, the user can access memory locations sequentially. For example, if the user wants to access a memory location 3, in random access memory, the user can access the memory location 3 directly. So on the other hand, in sequential access memory, user first need to access location 1, then to location 2, then only he can access location number 3. Presently, we are mainly using random access memory as the random access memory is fastest way of accessing the data. Now let us see what is a static RAM and what is a dynamic RAM. The RAMs are basically volatile memories, means when the power is switched off, these RAMs lose their information. The static random access memories are made up of the flip-flops. Basically, they need 6 transistors to construct a flip-flop. If flip-flop is in the 0 state, it stores 0. If flip-flop is in 1 state, it stores 1 inside the memory cell. On the other hand, we have dynamic RAMs. In dynamic RAMs, the information will be stored in the form of charge across a capacitor. To construct the dynamic RAM memory cell, it requires only 1 capacitor and 1 transistor. Let us compare the performance of the static RAMs with the dynamic RAM cells. The static RAM cell requires 6 transistors for its construction. In dynamic RAMs, each cell requires only 1 transistor and 1 capacitor. In static RAMs, the state of a flip-flop stores 0 or 1, and in dynamic RAMs, charge across the capacitor stores 0 or 1. If the capacitor is fully charged, it means 1. If the capacitor is discharged, it means 0. As static RAM requires 6 transistors, it is expensive. As dynamic RAM requires only 1 transistor and 1 capacitor, dynamic RAMs are cheaper. As static RAM requires 6 transistors, the storage density or packaging density is low, means for the given space, the static RAM can store less amount of data. In the case of dynamic RAMs, as dynamic RAM requires only 2 components, 1 transistor and 1 capacitor, dynamic RAMs can store more amount of data in the given space of the memory. Static RAMs are much faster and their memory access time is very less. Static RAM takes less time to access. In case of dynamic RAM, as the information is stored in the form of charge across a capacitor, dynamic RAM takes more time to access the data. Static RAMs consumes less power and dynamic RAM consumes more power, and in addition to that, dynamic RAMs must be provided with refresh cycles. As dynamic RAM stores the information in the form of charge across a capacitor, if you keep that aside, slowly capacitor discharges its information. So frequently these capacitors must be provided with refresh operations. Because of the low cost and high storage density, these dynamic RAMs are used as the main memories in the present day computers. Let us see what is a DDR SDRAM. These days, the DDR SDRAMs are used as main memories in personal computers such as laptops and desktops. The DDR SDRAM is basically a dynamic random access memory. The normal dynamic random access memories or DRAMs are not regulated by any external clocks. The DRAMs are asynchronous memories. If we connect these asynchronous DRAMs with the microprocessor, the computers may not work properly. The processor performs operations based on a reference clock. Hence, the memories that are connected with the processor must be synchronous. So, in the year 1993, the dynamic RAMs are made synchronous and synchronous dynamic RAMs, SDRAMs, are developed. However, the SDRAMs transfers the data only on one edge of the clock. Let us consider a reference clock having 4 clock cycles, and this is the first clock cycle, second clock cycle, third cycle and fourth cycle. In the conventional SDRAMs, the SDRAM performs the data transfer only on the rising edge of the reference clock. In the second clock, it performs the data transfer here. In the third clock, it performs the data transfer here. In fourth clock, it performs the data transfer. And hence, in 4 clock cycles, it performs only 4 data transfers. To increase the speed of operation of the SDRAMs, DDR SDRAMs are developed in the year 2000. DDR stands for double data rate synchronous dynamic random access memories. In DDR SDRAMs, the data transfer happens on both rising edge and falling edge of the clock cycles. And hence, in 4 clock cycles, the DDR SDRAM performs 8 data transfers, and hence this is called double data rate when compared to normal SDRAMs. The DDR SDRAMs has version 2, version 3 and version 4. At present, we are using DDR SDRAM version 4, popularly known as DDR4 SDRAMs. These DDR4 SDRAMs are used as main memories in the present day personal computers or your laptops and desktop computers. The old SDRAMs operates at a transfer rates of 100 to 166 millions of transfers per second during 1990s. The present day DDR4 SDRAMs operates at 1600 to 3200 millions of transfers per second. That is the speed of memory that we are using as main memories in the present days. They also operate at higher clock frequencies up to 1066 to 1600 megahertz of frequencies. They also operate at very low voltages of only 1.2 volts, and hence the power consumption of these DDR4 SDRAMs are also very less. This is an example of DDR4 SDRAM. It is a HP's 16 GB DDR4 SDRAM. In Indian local market, the 16 GB DDR4 SDRAM cost is approximately 7,000 rupees. Cache memory is an important component of a personal computers these days. Cache memory is basically a small sized, high speed, static random access memory that is connected between the central processing unit and the main memory. And this is the central processing unit. If it is a microcomputer, this is called a microprocessor. And it is the main memory. At present, we are using up to 16 GB of DDR4 SDRAM as main memories. Here we place a small sized static random access memory as cache memories. The size of the cache memories are very less, that is in the order of few megabytes. If you do not have cache memories, whenever the central processing unit wants to access the data, it accesses the data directly from the main memory. If the word length of this processor is 16 bits, at a time it transfers 16 bits of the data to the main memory or gets 16 bits of the data from the main memory. The small sized cache memory acts as a personal assistant to the central processing unit and keeps a track of most frequently accessed locations with the cache memory. The cache memory transfers blocks of most frequently accessed locations from the main memory to the cache memory and supplies these informations to the central processing unit at higher speeds whenever the processor requests. Whenever the central processing unit wants an information, it simultaneously asks the cache memory and the main memory. If that location is available with the cache memory, it supplies the information to the processor at higher speeds. If that information is not available with the cache memory, the main memory supplies the information little later. As most frequently used data is transferred to the cache memory, the central processing unit most of the times gets the data from the cache memory at higher speeds, and very few times it will go to the main memory and collects the data from the main memory little slowly, and hence the overall speed of the computer is increased. The present day computers are using separate instruction caches and data caches, and data cache is usually organized as hierarchy of more cache levels as L1, L2, L3, L4 and so on. To understand the uses of this cache memory and performance improvement of the computers, let us consider a simple example. What is the average memory access time for a machine with a cache hit rate of 80% and a cache access time of 5 nanoseconds and main memory access time of 100 nanoseconds. Cache access time T1 is equals to 5 nanoseconds and main memory access time is 100 nanoseconds. Main memory is dynamic RAM, cache is a static RAM. The static RAMs are approximately 20 times faster than the dynamic RAMs. Out of the 100 requests made by the central processing unit, 80% of the time cache memory is supplying the information, remaining 20% of the times cache memory is missing and the main memory is supplying the information. Then hence the hit rate is 80%, that is 0.8. The average memory access time is equal to hit rate into cache memory access time plus whenever it is missing, the main memory is giving the information. The miss rate is equals to 1 minus hit rate, that is 20% into main memory access time. 80% of the times cache memory is supplying the data and 20% of the time main memory is supplying the data. So 0.8 into 5 nanoseconds, 0.2 into 100 nanoseconds. It will come to a 24 nanoseconds. In this case, if the computer is not having a cache memory, the computer need to spend 100 nanoseconds to get the data from the main memory. If it has few MBs of cache memory having a memory access time of 5 nanoseconds, it can get the information within 24 nanoseconds. The performance is improved from 100 nanoseconds to 24 nanoseconds, and this is the use of cache memories in the present day computers. The read-only memory is a type of non-volatile memory, means the information will not be lost even the power is switched off. In normal read-only memories, the data stored cannot be modified after the manufacturing of the read-only memory. Later, we have developed a programmable read-only memory, PROM. In PROMs, the programmer can store the program only once with the help of a ROM burner or a ROM programmer. If the user wants to change the program, the PROM is to be thrown out and we need to purchase a new PROM for the new program. Later, we have developed erasable programmable read-only memories, EPROMs. EPROM is basically a ROM which has reprogramming capabilities. The popular EPROMs are ultraviolet EPROMs, wherein the erasing process takes place with the help of ultraviolet rays. The erasing of UV EPROM takes about 20 minutes time. Later, to reduce the time of erasing, electrical erasing process is introduced. These PROMs are called electrically erasable programmable read-only memories. With the help of electrically erasing and programming, the EPROMs can be reused thousands of times, and reprogramming takes less than a second time. Other type of read-only memory is a flash EPROM. Flash EPROM is basically an electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. If the flash EPROM is erased, the erasure of the entire content takes less than a second, and hence this is called a flash memory. In flash memories, if the contents are erased, the entire memory is erased. But in the case of electrically erasable programmable read-only memory, the user can erase the desired byte or bytes of memory. Only the desired portion can be erased. The present day personal computers uses flash EPROMs to store the important programs such as the instructions that are to be executed when the computer is power on. These important programs are normally called firmware of a computer or BIOS, the basic input output system. In computers, the flash EPROMs or BIOS chips are placed on the motherboard.
Till now, we have discussed different internal memories that are inside the microprocessor or on the motherboard of the computers. Now, let us discuss the external memories which are external to the motherboard or they are also called the secondary memories such as hard disk, etc.
In microcomputers also, the user expects 1 to 2 terabytes of memory to store their programs, software, audio files, video files, movies, etc. This huge memory is normally realized with the help of hard disk drives. Hard disks are made up of a series of circular disks called platters that are arranged one over the other. These disks are made of non-magnetic materials such as aluminum alloy and coated with 10 to 20 nanometers of magnetic materials. Magnetic heads are used to store the information into the hard disk and to read the information from the hard disk. In hard disk drives, the movement of these magnetic heads to the desired locations is controlled by stepper motors. The hard disk drives are basically the magnetic memories, and the cost of these memories are very less. In the present market, 1 terabyte of hard disk is available at a cost of 4,000 rupees and 2 terabyte hard disk is available at a cost of 6,500 rupees. The other type of secondary memories are solid state drives. The solid state drives are made up of solid state devices, and unlike in hard disk drives, it does not have any moving parts, and hence it has several advantages such as faster access time, noiseless operation, less power consumption when compared to the conventional hard disk drives. As the cost of the solid state drives are coming down these days, most of the personal computers are using solid state drives. The cost of 240 GB solid state drive is about 3,500 rupees in the present day Indian market. Another example for secondary memory are CD drives. CD stands for compact disc. In CDs, lasers are used to read and write the data. There are 3 types of compact discs are available: CD read-only memory, CD recordable, CD rewritable. The standard size of a compact disc CD is 700 MB, which is available only for 10 rupees in the local market. Another example of secondary memory is DVD. DVD stands for digital versatile disc. DVD can store 15 times the space as compact discs. DVDs are also come in 3 varieties: read-only, recordable and rewritable. The size of DVD is 4.7 GB, available at a cost of 25 rupees, and 8.5 GB DVDs are available at a cost of 60 rupees in the retail market. Another example is the pen drive, are also called USB flash drives. These USB flash drives can be connected to the computer via USB port. These USB drives are available from 2 GB to 128 GBs. These USB ports doesn't require any extra software or drivers. They can just plug and can be connected to the computers. The cost of the high-end 128 GB USB drive is about 1,200 rupees in the Indian market. Another example for secondary storage devices are SD cards. SD card stands for Secure Digital Card. They are mainly used in portable and mobile devices such as smartphones and digital cameras. We have different types of SD cards: standard SD cards, mini SD cards and micro SD cards. The cost of 64 GB SD card is about 700 rupees in Indian local market. Till now we have discussed different types of memories. In computers we use static memories, dynamic memories and optical memories and magnetic memories. The static memories are high speed memories and their cost is also very high. That is the reason why a small amount of static memories are used as CPU registers inside the central processing unit chip. And the static memories are also used as cache memories. The small size, approximately 4 MB of memory, is used as cache memory just outside the central processing unit chip, that is in between the main memory and the central processing unit. As the cost of the dynamic RAMs are very less when compared to static RAMs, we can use considerable amount of dynamic RAMs as main memory. In the present day computers, we are using up to 32 gigabytes of main memory. In computer operation, the CPU always sends the information to the main memory or receives the information from the main memory. All the instructions that are to be executed by the central processing unit must be available in the main memory. In computers, to provide huge storage space to store programs, audio files, video files, games, etc., the secondary storage devices are provided. As these secondary storage devices are very low cost devices, a huge amount of secondary storage can be provided at less cost. In the present day personal computers, we are able to provide up to 2 terabytes of secondary storage in the form of hard disk, solid state drives, etc. In computers, these secondary storages store the information permanently, and the main memory, caches and CPU register stores the information only temporarily. Whenever the CPU requires the information, it gets the information from the secondary storage to the main memory, then the CPU accesses the information from main memory through cache memory to the CPU. So, the main memory and caches will contain the information only when the CPU is working. Before the computer is turned off, the entire data that is available with the main memory must be transferred to the secondary storage devices for their permanent. In computers, we use very small amount of static memory as computer registers. We use few megabytes of static memory as cache memories, few gigabytes of dynamic memory as main memory, and a few terabytes of secondary storage memory. When you move from the secondary storage to computer registers, the speed of the memory increases and hence the cost of the memory also increases. When you move from the computer registers to the secondary storage, the volume of the memory and the size or the capacity of the memory increases. These are different types and sizes of computer memories that are used to have a low cost personal computer with a very good overall performance.
The present day personal computers uses up to 32 GB of DDR4 random access memories and up to 8 MB of cache memories and up to 2 terabytes of the hard disk in the desktop computers and the laptop computers. If you like this video, please share it to your friends and subscribe to the channel for more videos. In the next video, we'll discuss the evolution of microprocessors. The microprocessors were developed in 1971 by Intel Corporation. The first microprocessor developed by the Intel Corporation is 4004. The latest microprocessors that are available are i3, i5 and i7 processors that are normally used in the personal computers now. In the next lecture, we'll discuss the evolution of the microprocessors and their futures. Thank you.